The hall was buzzing with excitement as families and friends gathered for the small community recital. The wooden floors creaked under the weight of anxious footsteps, and the faint smell of polished wood and old books filled the air. Among the crowd, a young girl quietly stood near the back, clutching the straps of her little backpack. She had always loved music, and the piano in particular called to her in a way nothing else did. Yet today was different. Today she would perform in front of others, and the thought made her stomach twist in nervous knots. She could hear laughter and whispers from the audience. Some of the older kids were teasing each other, pointing in her direction. "Look at her," one whispered, snickering. "Do you think she can even reach the keys?" another added. The girl felt her cheeks grow warm, and a pang of fear threatened to make her turn and run away. She had imagined this moment countless times, always hoping it would be filled with joy and encouragement, not whispers and mockery. Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself of all the hours she had spent practicing in secret. The notes, the rhythms, the melodies she had created, all of them belonged to her. She had poured her heart into them, and no one could take that away. Slowly, she stepped forward, her small hands trembling slightly as she reached the piano. The crowd's whispers seemed louder now, but she kept her eyes fixed on the smooth, black and white keys in front of her. Some people in the audience shifted in their seats, glancing at her curiously. She could see the doubt on their faces, the disbelief that someone so small and timid could hold anything special. But she ignored them. Music had always been her escape, a world where she could be herself without fear of judgment. Today, she would let that world shine. Her fingers hovered over the keys for a moment, unsure, hesitant. The laughter and whispers seemed to fade as she closed her eyes, feeling the familiar weight of the notes beneath her fingertips. She remembered the quiet afternoons she had spent in her room, imagining a hall full of people listening intently, imagining herself playing with confidence and grace. Today, that imagination had to become reality. The first notes were soft, almost hesitant. They were small, careful steps into the melody she had practiced so many times alone. At first, the audience barely noticed. Some still whispered to each other, smirking. But slowly, the melody began to take shape. It flowed like a gentle stream, delicate and clear. Each note seemed to carry a piece of her heart, and even the skeptics in the crowd couldn't help but listen. She focused on the music, letting it guide her fingers. The nervousness that had gripped her moments ago began to dissolve, replaced by a quiet confidence. She could feel the rhythm in her chest, the harmony in her mind. She was no longer the girl who had been mocked. She was a storyteller, sharing a tale with each note, each chord. A few people in the back began to lean forward, curious. The laughter had stopped, replaced by an intrigued silence. They were listening now, really listening. The girl's music was simple, yet it carried an emotion that words could not express. It was as if she had opened a door into her soul, inviting everyone to step inside. The girl didn't notice the change in the room. She was completely absorbed in her playing, in the way the notes danced under her fingers. Memories of quiet evenings, practicing alone, flashed through her mind. The first time she had touched the piano, the first melody she had learned, the long hours of practice that no one had seen. All of it was coming together now. She was not just playing music. She was living it. Slowly, the melody grew stronger, more confident. Her fingers moved with a grace that seemed almost effortless. The audience could feel the emotion in every note, the sincerity and the passion. Even those who had doubted her began to shift in their seats, caught off guard by the beauty of her playing. They realized that the small, timid girl at the piano had a talent that could not be ignored. The girl continued, unaware of the impact she was having. She played with all the emotion she had kept bottled up for so long. The music spoke of hope, of dreams, of the courage it takes to face fear. Each chord resonated in the hearts of those listening, reminding them of the power of determination and passion. Her hands moved with increasing confidence, dancing across the keys as the melody swelled. The room seemed to hold its breath, captivated by the transformation of the girl from a shy, nervous child into a musician. commanding the attention of everyone present. Even the older kids who had mocked her moments before were silent, their eyes wide with awe. The girl's mind was a whirlwind of emotion, but her fingers never faltered. She remembered the encouragement of the music teachers who had believed in her, the smiles of friends who had cheered her on in private, and the countless hours she had dedicated to perfecting her craft. Every note she played was a tribute to that effort, a testament to the power of perseverance. As the first part of the melody reached its peak, she allowed herself a small smile. She could feel the energy of the room changing. The whispers and laughter had disappeared completely, replaced by a quiet appreciation. The audience was no longer thinking about her size, her nerves, or their own judgments. They were focused entirely on the music, on the story she was telling through her fingers. For the girl, this moment was more than just a performance. It was a triumph over fear, over doubt, over the voices that had tried to diminish her. She had faced the mockery and continued, letting her passion speak louder than any insult or doubt. She realized that the power of music was not just in the notes themselves, but in the courage to share them with the world. As she reached the end of the piece, her fingers lingered on the final note, letting it resonate in the air. The hall was silent for a brief moment, as if everyone was holding their breath, savoring the final sound. Then, slowly, applause began to build. At first it was tentative, but it grew steadily, filling the room with warmth and admiration. The girl opened her eyes and looked up, seeing the faces of the audience illuminated with smiles and awe. The same people who had whispered and laughed were now clapping with genuine appreciation. Some approached her after the performance, praising her talent, asking how she had learned to play with such emotion and skill. She listened quietly, grateful and a little overwhelmed, but proud of herself. She realized that the mockery she had faced was not the end, but the beginning. It had been a test of her courage, a challenge to her determination. By facing it, she had discovered a strength she didn't know she had. And in that strength, she found not just confidence, but a deep love for the music that had always been her companion. The young girl left the piano with a sense of accomplishment and peace. The hall no longer felt intimidating, it felt alive with possibility. She knew there would be more challenges ahead, more moments where she might feel small or uncertain. But now she also knew that she could face them. She could let her passion shine, no matter what others thought. That day marked the beginning of something new. The girl had not only played a tune none could forget, but she had also learned a lesson about courage, resilience, and the power of believing in oneself. As she stepped away from the piano and looked around the hall, she felt a quiet pride, knowing that she had taken the first step toward her dreams, and nothing could take that away from her. The next day, the young girl woke up with a quiet excitement bubbling inside her. The memory of the previous day's performance lingered in her mind. She remembered the way the hall had gone silent as she played, and the astonished faces of the audience when they realized the depth of her talent. She felt a mix of pride and nervousness, knowing that her journey was only beginning. She spent the morning at home, sitting at her small desk, looking over the notes she had written during her practice sessions. Her piano was tucked away in a corner of the living room, and she could hear its soft resonance even without touching it. Today, she decided, she would practice not just for herself, but for the moments she could share with others. She wanted to understand her music more deeply, to feel it not just in her fingers, but in her heart. As she started to play, the familiar melodies filled the room. Her fingers moved with a newfound confidence, guided by the memory of the applause from yesterday. She experimented with small variations, adding gentle flourishes, soft pauses, and subtle dynamics that brought life to the music. It was not about impressing anyone now. It was about discovering what each note could mean, how it could speak without words. She played for hours, stopping only to sip water or stretch her arms. Each time she returned to the piano, she noticed something new in the way the music flowed. The simple melodies she had practiced countless times were beginning to feel alive, as if they were conversations between her and the piano. She realized that her connection with music was not just about playing notes correctly. It was about expressing herself, sharing her feelings, and telling a story without speaking a single word. After practicing, she decided to take a walk outside. The morning air was crisp and the sunlight fell softly on the quiet streets. As she walked, she thought about the reactions she had received yesterday. The people who had doubted her, the ones who had laughed, they had all seen her transform through music. It was an amazing feeling, knowing that something so personal could touch others so deeply. She wondered if they realized how much courage it had taken to sit down and play despite the fear. On her walk, she noticed other children playing nearby. Some were kicking a ball back and forth, others were riding bikes and laughing loudly. She paused for a moment and thought about how different their world seemed from hers. Her world was filled with notes, rhythms, and melodies. It was quieter, more reflective, but it held a magic all its own. She smiled, knowing that while her path was different, it was just as meaningful. Back at home, she returned to her piano with a sense of purpose. She wanted to try a new piece, something she had been hesitant to attempt before. It was a complex composition, with fast passages and intricate harmonies. She knew it would be challenging, but she was ready. Her fingers trembled slightly at first, but as soon as the first notes rang out, she felt a sense of flow. The music seemed to guide her, and her fingers followed naturally, weaving the notes together with increasing confidence. Hours passed as she practiced, sometimes stopping to correct mistakes, sometimes playing sections over and over until they felt just right. She felt a deep satisfaction in the process, a joy that came not from recognition or praise, but from the simple act of creating something beautiful. The music became a reflection of her inner world, full of hope, curiosity, and determination. Later that afternoon, her parents came to watch her play. They had been quietly supportive all along, but seeing her confidence grow was a surprise even to them. They sat together in the living room, listening as she played the new piece. Their eyes widened in amazement at her skill, and they smiled at each other, proud of her dedication and growth. For the girl, their quiet approval was more meaningful than any applause. It was a reminder that the people who mattered most had always believed in her, even when others had doubted. That evening, she received a call from the local music teacher who had organized the recital. The teacher wanted to know if she would be interested in performing again, this time at a slightly larger event. The girl's heart leaped with excitement and a touch of nervousness. She knew that performing for a bigger audience would be more challenging, but she also felt ready. She had tasted the joy of sharing her music, and she wanted to experience it again. Over the next few days, she focused on preparing for the upcoming performance. She carefully selected pieces that showcased her strengths but also challenged her to grow. She practiced diligently, paying attention to each note, each pause, and each dynamic change. She experimented with phrasing, trying to convey emotion and meaning through subtle shifts in timing and tone. Each session brought her closer to the music and deeper into herself. During this time, she also reflected on the people who had mocked her during the first recital. At first, she had felt hurt and embarrassed, but now she saw their reactions differently. Their doubt had pushed her to focus, to prove to herself what she was capable of. The mockery had become a catalyst for growth, a challenge that she had turned into an opportunity. She realized that the power of music was not just in performing for others, but in the personal journey it created. Her friends and family noticed the change in her. She walked taller, spoke with more confidence, and carried herself with a quiet grace. Even her peers who had once laughed at her now looked at her with respect and curiosity. They wanted to know how she had become so skilled, so confident. But the girl knew that her journey was just beginning. She still had much to learn, much to explore, and much to share through her music. The day of the next recital arrived, and the girl felt a familiar flutter of nerves. But this time the nerves were different. They were not paralyzing. They were a reminder that she cared deeply about her music, that she wanted to share it fully and honestly. As she approached the piano, she took a deep breath and remembered the lessons she had learned from her first performance. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was moving forward despite it. When she began to play, the audience was captivated almost immediately. Her fingers moved with confidence and grace, expressing emotions that words could not capture. She played not to impress, but to communicate, to tell a story that was uniquely hers. Each note, each pause, each subtle variation carried meaning, and the audience responded with quiet attention and growing admiration. As she played, she felt a connection with the people listening. The music became a bridge, linking her inner world with theirs. She could sense their emotions, their surprise, and their appreciation. For the first time, she realized that performing was not just about skill or technique. It was about sharing a part of herself, inviting others into her world, and creating a shared experience of beauty and emotion. When she finished the final note, the hall was silent for a moment as if everyone were holding their breath. Then applause erupted, louder and more heartfelt than before. People rose to their feet, cheering and clapping, some with tears in their eyes. The girl felt a warm glow of satisfaction and pride. She had faced the challenge, shared her gift, and connected with others in a profound way. After the performance, many people approached her, asking questions about her technique, her practice, and her inspiration. She answered humbly, grateful for their interest and support. But more than anything, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had discovered that music was not just a skill to be measured by notes and rhythms, but a language of the heart, a way to express what could not be said aloud. The young girl continued to play, to practice, and to grow. Each performance brought new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to connect with others. She learned that talent alone was not enough. Dedication, courage, and passion were equally important, and she knew that no matter what others thought or said, the music within her would always guide her, inspire her, and give her strength. In the days and weeks that followed, the girl became more confident, more expressive, and more connected to her music than ever before. She practiced daily, explored new pieces, and experimented with her own compositions. She began to understand that music was a journey, not a destination, and that each step along the way was an opportunity to grow, learn, and share herself with the world. Through it all, she never forgot the first day she had faced mockery and fear. That moment remained a powerful reminder of her resilience, her courage, and the transformative power of music. It taught her that true talent is not just about what others see, but about the strength, passion, and dedication that come from within. And it showed her that when one dares to share their gift, even in the face of doubt, the result can be nothing short of unforgettable. The day of the bigger recital arrived, and the young girl felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had performed before, but this time the audience was larger and the stage felt much more imposing. She could see rows of chairs stretching far into the hall, filled with people she had never met. The bright stage lights cast a warm glow, but they also made her feel exposed. Her heart raced as she clutched the sheet music in her hands, trying to steady her trembling fingers. Backstage, she watched other performers go on, some playing instruments, some singing. They seemed confident and composed while she struggled to quiet the fluttering in her stomach. She reminded herself that she had practiced for this moment, that she had faced fear before and had come out stronger. This was just another step on her journey, another chance to share her music with the world. When her turn came, she walked slowly onto the stage, her eyes fixed on the piano. The audience was quiet, waiting, some leaning forward with curiosity. The murmurs of previous performers faded as she positioned herself at the instrument. Her hands hovered over the keys for a brief moment, and she took a deep breath. The first note sounded soft and deliberate, and the hall seemed to lean in, listening. The melody she played was familiar, but she added new nuances, small variations she had practiced to convey deeper emotion. Each note seemed to carry a story, a piece of her heart. The audience, initially quiet, began to respond to the sincerity and depth of her playing. Some faces softened, some eyes widened in surprise, and a few smiled as the music touched something within them. As she continued, she noticed the transformation in the room. The initial skepticism and doubt were gone. People were no longer thinking about her size or age. They were thinking about the music, about the story she was telling with her fingers. She felt a quiet joy in that realization. Music had the power to change perceptions, to connect people, and she was living proof of it. Her fingers moved with confidence now, gliding over the keys as the melody grew richer and more expressive. She experimented with dynamics, adding gentle swells and soft pauses, creating a dialogue between the notes and the silence. She felt the rhythm in her chest, the harmony in her mind, and allowed it to guide her. Every mistake she had once feared seemed to vanish, replaced by a sense of flow and freedom. The audience was captivated. Even those who had never heard her before were drawn into her performance. Some leaned forward, holding their breath as if afraid to break the magic of the moment. Others closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, feeling the emotion she was pouring into every chord. She was no longer a timid girl on a stage. She was a storyteller, a messenger, a young artist sharing her soul. Halfway through the piece, she allowed herself to reflect on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the first time she had touched the piano, the long hours spent practicing alone, the fear and mockery she had faced in her first recital. Those experiences had shaped her, teaching her resilience, patience, and determination. Every challenge she had encountered had strengthened her, and now she could channel all of that into her music. The melody began to rise, building in intensity and emotion. She played with a passion that seemed almost tangible, each note a reflection of her courage and dedication. The audience was visibly moved, some leaning forward in anticipation, some closing their eyes to fully absorb the sound. She could feel their attention, their admiration, and it gave her an additional sense of purpose. She wasn't playing for herself alone anymore. She was playing for everyone in that hall, sharing a gift she had cultivated with love and perseverance. As the music swelled, she experimented with subtle improvisation, adding personal touches that made the piece uniquely hers. She felt a thrill in creating something new in the moment, something that spoke directly from her heart to the audience. Each variation, each delicate shift in rhythm or tone, deepened the connection between her and the listeners. She realized that music was not just about notes on a page, but about expression, communication, and the shared experience of emotion. Her performance reached a climax, the music soaring with energy and intensity. She could feel the excitement in the audience, a collective response to the story she was telling. The room was alive with emotion, and she was at the center of it, guiding it with her hands and her heart. The once intimidating stage now felt like a place where she belonged, where she could be fully herself and fully understood. As she approached the final section of the piece, she slowed the tempo, letting the notes linger and resonate. Each sound hung in the air, creating a sense of anticipation and reflection. The audience was silent, fully engaged, as if holding their breath to capture every moment. She felt a wave of calm wash over her, a sense of completion and fulfillment. She had shared everything she had to give, and it was enough. The last note faded into silence, leaving the hall in a suspended moment. Then slowly, applause began, growing louder and more enthusiastic with each passing second. People rose to their feet, clapping and cheering, some with tears in their eyes. The girl felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of pride, relief, and joy. She had faced her fears, overcome doubt, and created something unforgettable. After the performance, several audience members approached her, expressing admiration and curiosity. Some asked how she had learned to play so beautifully. Others praised her ability to convey emotion through music. She responded quietly, thanking them and acknowledging the teachers, family, and practice that had helped her reach this point. She felt humbled by their appreciation, yet proud of the journey she had undertaken. The experience left a lasting impact on her. She understood that her talent was not just about skill, but about courage, dedication, and the willingness to share herself despite fear. She realized that the obstacles she had faced, the mockery, the self-doubt, the nervousness, were all part of the process that had strengthened her. Each challenge had prepared her to shine, and she had learned to embrace them rather than fear them. In the days following the recital, she found herself reflecting on the audience's reactions and her own growth. She noticed that people who had once doubted her now treated her with respect and admiration, but more importantly, she felt a deeper sense of self-assurance. She had discovered an inner strength, a confidence in her abilities and her voice as a musician, that no external judgment could diminish. She continued to practice diligently, exploring new pieces, experimenting with composition, and refining her technique. Each session at the piano became an opportunity to express herself, to grow, and to connect with the music on a deeper level. She realized that performance was not the only goal. The journey of learning and creating was equally important, a source of joy and fulfillment. The girl also began to notice the influence she had on others. Friends and younger children in her community looked up to her, inspired by her dedication and courage. Some asked her for guidance, wanting to learn to play the piano themselves. She welcomed these moments, sharing what she had learned with patience and kindness, encouraging others to explore their own talents and passions. Through it all, she never forgot the first day she had faced mockery and doubt. That experience remained a touchstone, a reminder of how far she had come and the power of perseverance. It taught her that talent alone was not enough. Courage, determination, and a willingness to take risks were equally vital. She carried this lesson with her in every practice session, every performance, and every interaction with others. The girl's journey continued, each recital and practice session building on the last. She learned to embrace challenges, to find inspiration in unexpected places, and to connect with her audience through the universal language of music. She discovered that true artistry was not measured by applause or recognition alone, but by the ability to convey emotion, to touch hearts, and to inspire others through dedication and authenticity. Her confidence grew steadily, but she remained humble, aware of the effort and passion that had brought her to this point. She knew that there would always be more to learn, more to explore, and more ways to express herself. Yet she also knew that she had already achieved something remarkable, the ability to face fear, rise above doubt, and share a piece of herself with the world in a way that left a lasting impression. And so, the girl continued to play, to practice, and to grow, guided by the music that had always been her companion. She knew that every note, every melody, and every performance was part of a larger journey, a journey of courage, self-discovery, and the enduring power of sharing one's passion with others. Through her music, she had learned not only to express herself but also to inspire and connect, leaving a mark that no one would soon forget. After the bigger recital, the young girl returned home feeling a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The experience had been overwhelming in the best way possible. She sat quietly in her room, reflecting on everything she had learned from the performance. The applause, the astonished faces, the feeling of commanding the stage, it all left her with a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. Yet she also realized that this was only the beginning. Her journey with music was far from over, and there were still many lessons to be learned. Over the next few days, she dedicated herself to practicing even more. She explored new pieces, some simple and others more challenging. Her piano became a place of discovery, a space where she could experiment and express herself freely. She noticed that her confidence was growing, not just in her playing but in her own sense of self. She no longer doubted that she belonged on stage or that her music could touch others. The memory of the mockery she had faced earlier seemed distant, almost irrelevant compared to the pride and joy she now felt. She spent hours each day at the piano, refining her technique and learning to listen to the subtleties in her music. She experimented with phrasing, timing, and dynamics, discovering new ways to bring emotion into her playing. Sometimes she would close her eyes and imagine an audience, feeling the energy of the room as she played. Other times she would focus solely on the sound, letting the music guide her fingers without thinking too much. Each session brought her closer to the music, and she could feel her skills and expression improving steadily. One afternoon, she decided to perform for a small group of friends and family. She wanted to see how her playing could affect people in a more intimate setting. As she sat at the piano and began to play, she noticed the way her audience leaned in, their eyes fixed on her fingers and their faces softening as the music filled the room. The experience was different from the larger recital. It was personal and direct. She could see the emotions her music evoked in each listener, and it gave her a sense of connection she had never felt before. Her parents watched her with pride, and a few of her friends who had never seen her perform seriously were genuinely impressed. They asked questions about her technique, the pieces she had chosen, and the inspiration behind her music. She answered, with humility and joy, grateful for their encouragement and attention. She realized that sharing her music, even in a small setting, was as meaningful as performing for a larger audience. It was about touching hearts, connecting with others, and expressing herself authentically. As the days passed, she began to receive invitations to perform at more events in her community. Each new opportunity brought a mix of excitement and nerves. She understood that each performance was a chance to grow, to learn, and to connect with others through her music. She also realized that performing was not just about showing skill, but about conveying emotion and telling a story through her playing. Every note, every pause, every variation was a chance to communicate something deeply personal and meaningful. During this period, she also started to mentor younger children who were learning to play the piano. They looked up to her, inspired by her skill and dedication. She enjoyed helping them, teaching them the techniques she had learned and encouraging them to practice with patience and persistence. She realized that sharing her knowledge was another way to express herself and her love for music. It also reminded her of the journey she had taken, From a timid girl mocked for reaching the piano to a confident performer capable of inspiring others. One day, she received an invitation to perform at a regional music competition. The thought of it made her heart race. The competition was larger than anything she had experienced before, with talented musicians from many different towns. The pressure was intense, but she felt ready. She had faced fear before, and she had learned to channel it into her playing. She knew that this was another step in her journey, a chance to test her skills and grow even further. In preparation for the competition, she focused on mastering several challenging pieces. She practiced tirelessly, paying attention to every detail. She worked on technical exercises, scales, and intricate passages to ensure her fingers moved with precision and control. She also focused on interpretation, exploring ways to convey emotion and tell a story through her music. Each practice session was a step toward becoming not just a skilled pianist, but a true musician who could communicate and connect through her art. As the competition day approached, she felt a mix of anticipation and nerves. She reminded herself of everything she had learned, the courage to face mockery, the determination to practice diligently, the joy of sharing music with others. She knew that the experience itself, regardless of the outcome, would be valuable. She took deep breaths, visualized herself playing confidently, and trusted in the preparation and effort she had invested. When the day of the competition arrived, she entered the hall and saw the rows of chairs, the stage, and the other participants. Some of the musicians were older, more experienced, and seemed confident. She felt a flicker of nervousness but quickly reminded herself that her journey was unique. Her strength came not just from skill but from passion, dedication, and the courage to face her fears. She had already overcome so much, and she could face this challenge with confidence. As she sat at the piano and began to play, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. The music flowed naturally, guided by her emotions and instincts. She played, with expression, dynamics, and sensitivity, letting the story in her heart unfold through each note. The audience was attentive, captivated by the depth and sincerity of her performance. She could sense their engagement, their emotional response, and it gave her an additional layer of energy and purpose. Throughout the performance, she experimented with subtle improvisation, adding personal touches that made the music uniquely hers. She felt a thrill in expressing herself fully, in communicating something deeply personal through the piano. Each note carried intention, each pause carried meaning, and the overall effect was a compelling and moving experience for the audience. She realized that this was what music was truly about: connection, expression, and the ability to touch hearts. When the final note lingered and faded into silence, there was a brief moment of stillness. Then the hall erupted in applause, loud and heartfelt. People rose to their feet, clapping and cheering, some with tears in their eyes. The girl felt a wave of relief and joy wash over her. She had faced another challenge, shared her gift, and connected with her audience in a profound way. The experience reinforced her belief in herself and in the power of music to transcend fear and doubt. After the performance, several people approached her, praising her skill and asking about her preparation and inspiration. She responded with humility, grateful for their interest and support. She also took time to acknowledge the teachers, family, and friends who had encouraged her along the way. She realized that her journey was not solitary. It had been shaped by the support and guidance of those who believed in her and nurtured her talent. In the weeks following the competition, the girl continued to practice and perform. Each experience, whether large or small, reinforced her confidence and deepened her love for music. She learned to embrace challenges, to appreciate the growth that comes from effort and perseverance, and to connect with others through the universal language of music. She realized that true success was not measured by awards or recognition alone, but by the impact she could have on others and the fulfillment she found in expressing herself. The girl's journey continued to inspire those around her. Friends, family, and younger students looked to her as a role model, motivated by her dedication and courage. She welcomed the opportunity to share her knowledge and encourage others, understanding that teaching and mentoring were an extension of her own growth and expression. Through her music, she was not only telling her own story but also helping others find their voice. Through all these experiences, The girl never forgot the first time she had faced mockery and doubt. Those memories reminded her of the resilience, courage, and determination that had brought her to this point. She understood that the challenges she had faced were not obstacles but opportunities for growth, and that every performance, every practice session, and every moment of self-expression was a step forward on her journey. Her music continued to evolve, reflecting her experiences, emotions, and insights. She experimented with new styles, compositions, and interpretations, constantly pushing herself to explore and grow. She realized that music was a lifelong journey, full of discovery, learning, and connection. Each performance, whether in a small room or a large hall, was an opportunity to share a piece of herself and to touch the hearts of others. As she looked toward the future, the girl felt a sense of excitement and purpose. She knew that her path would continue to have challenges and moments of doubt, but she also knew that she had the strength, passion, and courage to face them. Music had given her a voice, a sense of identity, and a means to connect with others in ways she had never imagined. She was ready to embrace every opportunity, to continue learning, and to share her gift with the world. Time passed, and the young girl continued to grow both as a musician and as a person. Her reputation had begun to spread throughout the community, and people looked forward to hearing her play. The once timid girl who had been mocked for reaching the piano had become a source of inspiration for many, a symbol of courage, talent, and dedication. She understood that her journey was not just about personal success but about touching others with the power of music. She spent her days practicing, composing, and preparing for performances. Each day she pushed herself to explore new techniques and challenge her abilities. Her music became richer, more expressive, and full of emotion. She experimented with different styles, blending classical pieces with her own interpretations and original compositions. Her piano was no longer just an instrument. It had become an extension of her soul, a way to communicate the feelings she could not always put into words. The girl continued to perform at various events, from community gatherings to regional competitions. Each performance brought new experiences, new challenges, and new opportunities for growth. She learned to manage her nerves, to focus on the music, and to connect with her audience on a deeper level. The applause, the smiles, and the admiration she received were gratifying, but she valued most the moments when her music genuinely touched someone's heart. One day, she was invited to perform at a prestigious music festival in the nearby city. The opportunity filled her with both excitement and anxiety. The audience would be larger, the expectations higher, and the level of talent greater than she had encountered before. She felt the familiar flutter of nerves, but she also felt ready. She had faced fear before and had learned to channel it into her playing. This was another step in her journey, another chance to share her music with the world. In the weeks leading up to the festival, she practiced diligently. She prepared a program that included both familiar pieces and new compositions she had written herself. She worked tirelessly to perfect each note, each pause, and each expression. She focused on bringing emotion into her performance, allowing the music to tell a story that was uniquely hers. She understood that the audience would respond to authenticity, to the sincerity and passion she conveyed through every sound. When the day of the festival arrived, the girl entered the grand hall and saw the large stage. The bright lights and the rows of seats filled with people. She felt a flicker of anxiety but quickly reminded herself of all she had accomplished. She had faced mockery, learned to practice with dedication, performed in smaller recitals, and gained confidence through experience. She knew she could rise to the challenge. As she sat at the piano and began to play, she felt the music flow naturally through her fingers. Each note, each chord carried emotion, telling a story that transcended words. The audience was captivated, leaning in to listen, some closing their eyes to absorb the music fully. She could sense their attention and engagement, and it gave her a sense of connection that was both exhilarating and grounding. The music became a bridge between her world and theirs, a shared experience of beauty and emotion. Her performance was filled with energy, emotion, and technical skill. She played with confidence and grace, adding subtle variations and improvisations that made the pieces uniquely hers. She felt a sense of freedom as she expressed herself fully through the music. The audience responded with increasing admiration, their faces lighting up as they experienced the depth and sincerity of her performance. She realized that this was the true power of music, its ability to connect people, to evoke emotion, and to communicate what words often cannot. When she reached the final piece, she played with a sense of culmination, bringing together all the skills, emotions, and experiences she had developed over the years. The hall was filled with sound, each note resonating with purpose and passion. She could feel the energy of the audience, their emotional response, and it fueled her performance even further. She played as if telling her entire story. From the timid girl mocked for reaching the piano to the confident young musician standing before them now. The final note lingered in the air, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, the audience erupted into applause, louder and more heartfelt than anything she had experienced before. People rose to their feet, cheering, clapping, and some even shedding tears. The girl felt a profound sense of fulfillment and pride. She had faced fear, embraced her talent, and shared it with the world in a way that was genuine and unforgettable. After the performance, many people approached her offering praise, admiration, and questions about her music and technique. She answered with humility and gratitude, acknowledging the support of her teachers, family, and friends. She realized that her journey had not been solitary. It had been shaped by the encouragement, guidance, and belief of those around her. She was grateful for their presence and knew that their support had been instrumental in her growth. The festival marked a turning point in her life. She began receiving more opportunities to perform, to teach, and to inspire others. She took on mentoring roles, helping younger students discover their own talents and encouraging them to pursue their passions. She shared her experiences openly, emphasizing the importance of practice, perseverance, and courage. She wanted others to understand that talent alone was not enough. It was the dedication, passion, and resilience that truly made a difference. In the months that followed, she continued to grow as a musician and as a person. She explored new musical genres, composed original pieces, and refined her technique. She performed at concerts, community events, and competitions, always striving to share her music in a meaningful and authentic way. She embraced challenges, learned from mistakes, and celebrated successes, understanding that each experience was a step on her journey. Through it all, she never forgot the moment when she had been mocked for reaching the piano. That memory served as a reminder of her resilience and determination. It taught her that obstacles could become opportunities, that fear could be transformed into courage, and that self-belief was the key to achieving one's dreams. She understood that her journey was not only about personal achievement, but also about inspiring others to embrace their own potential. The young girl's story spread throughout her community, inspiring others to pursue their passions despite fear or doubt. She became a symbol of perseverance, courage, and the transformative power of music. People admired,